All right, my name is Pete Ballentine and my car is a 2015 Superlite Coupe. Trying to figure out a venue to sell this car, it was interesting. There's not really a lot of good venues to sell this type of car. It's very, very unique car. It's kind of a niche market you're looking at. So I considered several different places. eBay, just I don't know. I've watched eBay over the years, and it just does not seem like a good place to sell a higher end car. If you're selling your 1995 Honda Accord, it might be an okay place, but it just didn't seem like the right place for the car. On my Cobra, when I sold that, there is a website called Cobra Country that's totally dedicated to selling Cobras. So that was a perfect place to sell my Cobra, and I ended up selling it within 4 days after listing it there. But there really isn't a site like that for an SLC. So I looked at Bring a Trailer, didn't really... I contacted them and decided that wasn't what I wanted to do, so Mecum, really big thing with Mecum is it's right down the road in Indianapolis. Don't have to go a long way to get it there. Versus there are quite a few other classic car auctions like Barrett Jackson, but Barrett Jackson's way out in Arizona. I didn't really want to take the car that far. I knew I was probably going to go with Mecum, so I've been going to the auctions for the last 4 years in a row, just to kind of see how the whole thing works and kind of get a feel. And I really feel like Mecum, it's going to be the best place to get the kind of buyer there that I'm looking for. That hopefully will get my reserve at Mecum. So. The process to list it with Mecum, went online to their website, filled out a form listing all the details of the car, sent them some pictures that I had taken, and then they ask you to pick. You can pick. There's 3 different categories you can pick. I forget what the names of them are, but first level is a $500 level. The second level is $1,000. And the third level is $1,500. I decided to go and the amount of money you pay to list it is commensurate with how much advertising, I guess, that they do on the car and where in the auction that you get placed. Obviously, the more money you pay to list it, the better place you get in the auction. So I initially went in with a $1,000 level, and I asked them to list it on Friday. Because Friday, going to the auction the last few years, it seemed like Friday was the day that the most of the high-end cars went for. And they suggested that I put it on Thursday and do the $1,500 level. They said they could give me a lot better position on Thursday than on Friday. And with the $1,500 level, they send a photographer out and they take the pictures. Their photographer takes the pictures that Mecum wants, and you also get it in their catalog, which they print out a catalog, I think, a few weeks before the auction. And then when you go to the auction, they hand out the catalogs. So if you pay the $1,500, you get in the catalog, which is kind of cool. I don't know if we'll see if it was worth an extra $500 or not. But anyway, I paid the $1,500. They sent me an information packet I had to fill out, a lot of paperwork like power of attorney for the car, so I had to fill that out, send them my title with that. They called me a few days later, and their photographer called me and set up a photo shoot. Went out, took the car to a local park here, and it was interesting because the photographer had an exact list of shots that Mecum wanted, all the different angles that they wanted, and they apparently are very specific about exactly what pictures they want of the car. So he went through and checked off his sheet when as he was going through to make sure he didn't miss any of the angles that they wanted, and then took a few more pictures. And the pictures that he took were really good, which they're on the Mecum site now. So then after that, the Monday before the auction, you have to check the car in. We'll see how that goes. I've never done that before, obviously, not seen that. And then one of the things I ask them about is, so, you know, Tuesday through the auction, the car's going on Thursday. Should I hang out there and hang out by the car? You know, are people going to be asking questions? And what Mecum told me is that the more you hang out with the car, the more you can talk to people about it, the better chance you have of getting a good price for it. So I am planning on staying there. It'll be a full week. I'll be there Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And we'll see how that goes. Never done that before, so should be interesting.
How you feeling? How's it looking? You nervous?
I'm very nervous.
Nervous?
But hey, there's no for
Awesome. Well, good luck.
Professional build. Please see the sticker on the windshield. 68, 68, 70. Here we go, 228, 2015 Superlite SLC. I love the 2015 civil vehicle, the 2015 Superlite SLC. 150 pounds out of here, 100 here, 100 pounds out of here, 60,000, 75,000, 80,000 out of here, 80,000 here, I'll take 75,000, hang it on 70. Wow. 75,000, make it on 70 days, on 5, or you want 75,000, oh 70 days, 75,000. Vote. Good job.
Hi, this is Pete Ballentine. Just got done going across the block here at Mecum Indianapolis with my Superlite SLC. Didn't go as well as I'd hoped. Car was the bid was significantly less than reserve, so didn't sell it. But still going to have people can still put bids on it on Friday and Saturday, so there's still a chance I could sell it. But we'll see. It's been a fun experience anyway. Got to see lots of cool cars, got to drive across the stage at Mecum, and I got my picture with Reggie Jackson today, so that was cool. So it's been interesting. All right, so I took my Superlite SLC to Mecum Auctions in Indianapolis last week. It was an interesting experience. I took the car over on Monday and dropped it off. Went through the in-processing thing that they do there, and they showed me where to park it. Had to drive through several buildings to get to where I was, but they gave me a nice parking spot in a indoor air conditioning building, so that was nice. There was a lot of cars that were parked outside. And then I went back over on Tuesday. The car wasn't going into auction until Thursday, but I went over there on Tuesday and just stayed with the car all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, just in case people had questions, wanted to know things about the car. Kind of asked Mecum when I signed up for the auction if that was a good thing to do, because I didn't really know anything about, never taken a car there before. And they told me, oh yeah, the more you're there with your car, the better. So took several days off of work to do that. That ended up not really being all that useful. I really didn't, it was kind of surprising. Didn't really get very many people asking me about the car. Probably sitting there for 3 days, probably had 5 or 6 people really ask me detailed questions about the car, more than I get at a regular car show. So I did talk to a couple other guys there that were selling cars, that had sold a lot of cars at Mecum. And kind of funny, one of the guys said, oh yeah, guys that buy cars, they never ask you anything. They show up, if they want the car, they show up and they bid on it, which is kind of weird. I think if I were buying a car there, I'd be asking all kinds of questions about it, because you don't get to drive it, you don't really even get to see it running or anything like that. So you're kind of don't really know how well the car's going to run or how it's going to drive or anything else. So I would be asking a lot of questions, but nobody really did. So I guess lesson learned: if you ever take a car to Mecum, don't waste your time and sit there with it, because nobody's going to ask you anything. All right, so Thursday, the day of the auction, got there about 9 o'clock in the morning, and watched the beginning of the auction. There's actually a Ford F-150 coming up that was like the lot number 15, I think it was, that I was interested in bidding on. So I made sure we got there early, and ended up that it was a no reserve car, but the price I was willing to pay for it, it went through that price in about 20 seconds. So that was kind of didn't work out well for me, but that's okay. The owner got a good price on it. But started watching the auction at that point, and I noticed that it was about 2 minutes a car, and my number was 228. So I started doing the math and realized pretty quickly that I wasn't going to be on the block till late in the evening, which was a little bit disappointing, because when I signed up for the auction, Mecum told me that we'd be on about 2 o'clock, and the TV coverage ended at 4:30. So it was pretty clear to me right up front that we weren't going to make the TV coverage. So that was a bit disappointing. But like I said, when I was sitting with the car, didn't really get a whole lot of questions from people in the building that they had us in. But they moved us over to the staging lanes about noon. And as soon as we moved over to the staging lanes, there were just all kinds of people looking at the car. Got a lot of attention there. Kind of interesting. Still, there wasn't a whole lot of people asking me about it. A lot more than in the other building, but there was a lot more people looking at the car, at least. So moved over to the staging lanes about noon, and said, doing the math, I figured out at about that point, I'm going, it's going to be probably 6:45, 7 o'clock until we went across the block. And that was, I think it was right around 7 o'clock is when the car actually went across the block. So it was a full day sitting with the car in the staging lanes, which it was cool, because it got a lot of traffic there. And got to see a lot of people going by. Met Reggie Jackson when I was waiting in the staging lanes. He had a whole bunch of cars that he was selling there, and got a picture with him in front of the car. That was nice. So that was kind of how the day of the auction went up until taking it across the block. Leaving the staging lanes, first they assigned a driver to ride with me. I guess normally the drivers take the cars across, they drive the cars across the block, but they were a little nervous about driving my car, being it so low to the ground and how unique it is. They asked me if I'd drive it across the block, and sure, not a problem, I'll drive it. But they wanted to have a driver with me just to tell me when to go and where to go and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting. The guy got in the car, and when we were moving up in the staging lanes, probably we were in the car in the staging lanes for probably about half an hour, so we had time to chat and ask him about, hey, you know, this looks like a pretty cool job, driving all these cars. How do you get that? He said he's a member of, I believe it's a Miata club, and the Miata club and the Corvette club from the area that he's from. Don't remember where he was from. It was someplace in Indiana, but they actually volunteered to drive the cars, and Mecum pays their clubs, and they use that for a fundraising thing for some charities. So that was pretty neat. The guy was telling me about all the cars that he got to drive across the block, and he said last year he got to drive an original Shelby Cobra across the block, which that would be pretty cool. I think that Cobra went for over $1 million. So how often you get to drive $1 million car, even if it's only at 10 miles an hour? But still, that would be a lot of fun. So chatted with him as we were going down the staging lanes. Got to say I was getting pretty nervous at that point. And then turned the corner to where you're lined up with the stage. And they had me shut the engine off, and they pushed the car up until it was in the on deck area, and then they actually had me start up the engine and drive it onto the stage during the auction. So the price, you know, it was going up pretty quickly, and so I had my hopes up. It was looking pretty good, and then it just kind of stalled out. Significantly below my reserve price, so it didn't sell. A little disappointing on that, obviously. Like I said, I think the time of day probably had quite a bit of influence, because by 7 o'clock, you know, you could look in the crowd, and the crowd was definitely thinned out from earlier in the day. Just watching the auction, it seemed like about 2 to 4 p.m. was like the best time to be going across the block. That was when the most people were in the bidders area. But that's the way it goes, I guess. If there was somebody there that really wanted my car, they would have waited till 7 o'clock, I guess. So I think I missed out on the guy that just saw the car as it's on the block, you know, and went, ooh, hey, I like that, I'll bid on it. But obviously just didn't have the guy there that wanted the car this time. So we'll see. So after the auction, drove it back to the building where they had me park it originally, and closed it all up and headed home. They do have a thing called the bid goes on, where people can come in if they're interested in the car. There's a desk where they can go and make a bid on the car. And I went over to the bid goes on desk after the auction and talked to them a little bit about how that works. And what they told me was if they get someone that wants to put a bid, then they would call me and let me know what the bid was. I'm not exactly sure how that works with the reserve. Obviously, if the bid's below the reserve, then they're not going to take it. So I assume that they tell people what the reserve price is if they ask them, but I didn't really ask them about that. I probably should have, but didn't think of that till later. So went home, was staying by the phone on Friday and Saturday, and Sunday hoping maybe I'd get a call, but didn't get a call. So went back over on Sunday morning, and packed up all my stuff and drove the car home. So now I've got to wait for 3 weeks. Mecum, part of the contract with Mecum is if the car sells within 21 days after the auction, then Mecum still gets their cut. So which is when the buyers and the sellers side, it's 20%. So obviously, I'm not going to try to sell it on my own until the 21 days are up, because I really don't want to pay up 20% of whatever I sell it for. What's next? I guess I'm going to keep taking it to some car shows and till my 21 days are up, and I think maybe I'll give Bring a Trailer another shot. We'll see how that works. There's few online places I might put it, advertise it, but I think probably Bring a Trailer is probably my best shot at this point.